Aloha, this is Caron Davis of Caron Realty International. It's another Friday. Hope everyone had a great Mother's Day last week. And as we come into this weekend, I hope you get to have another wonderful family day. Today, I'm very excited. I have Duncan back. Welcome, Duncan. And we actually talked about this a few weeks ago, but we did not have enough time to put that into our presentation, so we thought we'd make it a separate topic. And this topic is on the changing rules in condominiums. And one thing that I'm finding is I'm showing some of the older buildings in Honolulu, the maintenance fees are skyrocket. They're very high. It's really, it's a tough one for people to absorb some of these maintenance fees. I believe it was a middle of the road building I showed a few weeks ago, a 1-bedroom unit, and the maintenance fee was nearly $1,500 a month. On an older building. Yeah. So what this tells me is very important as a realtor right now to understand what is going on, why maintenance fees are higher, where they may go, what are the rules, what are the reserves, the sprinkler system rule. So Duncan, why don't we take it away and you give some of what you're seeing as a mortgage broker, and if you don't mind, I'll ask questions as we go along.
Sure thing. Yeah, the rules that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have put in place in the wake of the Surfside Condo collapse in Florida last year. And the rules have really tightened up. And so condos, when you apply for a purchase of a condo or a refinance, they review the condo docs, and the buyer or the borrower has to be approved, but also the building or the project has to be approved as well. And the requirements for that approval have gotten much stricter, and there are additional questions that the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require to be answered for a conventional loan. A lot of them having to do with the maintenance, deferred maintenance, special assessments, and making sure that the buildings have enough reserves and that they can handle and keep the building safe for the occupants. And so some of the older buildings especially don't have enough reserves, or they might have some asbestos issues or certain things where it can cause a condo to be rejected. So there are actually some lenders that will refuse to do conventional loans anymore on condos, and they'll do everything as a portfolio loan, because portfolio loans don't have to meet the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines. So we as brokers, I'm doing more portfolio loans on condos than I've ever done before, just because that allows you to close without having to deal with the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac issues. If it's a condo that's kind of questionable about whether to be approved by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, we'll use a portfolio loan with a local lender that has great rates. A lot of the portfolio loans, especially on condos, can be even better than Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Sometimes when they don't have a condo adder, whereas the conventional loans do, if you could put less than 25% down. So sometimes the pricing can be better using a portfolio loan anyway. But we're doing a lot more portfolio loans just so we don't run into those issues where we do get condos rejected. And sometimes we have had some condos rejected during this transition, and we're able to switch lenders and close the loans that way. So that's the great thing about us being able to work with so many lenders locally and nationally. We can switch or use the appropriate lender, and we know which lenders are tougher on condos and which ones are a little easier. So we match up not only the buyer with the best program, but the condo with the best program as well, to make sure that it can be approved.
And I know one of the questions that we often get, if we're showing clients condominiums is, are the reserves strong enough? And is there a general rule of thumb that how somebody can tell if they're strong enough or not?
Sometimes, or usually the condos will have a reserve study that will show to make sure that they have enough reserves. And as long as they satisfy the state requirements and the reserve study shows that they have enough reserves, the condo review team at the lenders will do a thorough review and make sure that they have sufficient reserves to satisfy all the deferred maintenance and all the required. And then they'll look at the budget to make sure everything is set up appropriately so they don't run into issues.
So interestingly enough, I used to refer my clients to CPAs, but it sounds like lenders now are doing that job just because they have to be extra careful with reserves.
Yeah, they look at it much more in depth now, especially on conventional loans. Now on a VA loan, for example, they don't do the thorough review because the VA condos will get they'll get approved up front, and a VA approval, and that's one thing. If you have a VA buyer, the VA buyer can be more attractive, even if they're doing with zero down, than it can be than a conventional buyer on a condo, especially if it's something that's a little questionable on the qualifying for a conventional loan. VA buyer, you don't have to worry about that. They don't review the condo docs. If it's VA approved, then the condo is good, and the VA buyer can get through the loan process. As long as the buyer qualifies, they don't have to worry about the condo getting qualified. So a lot of VA loans are actually more attractive for offers on condos than a conventional loan, just depending on whether there's any questions on the condo itself, the project.
You know, it's interesting. Just the other day, we had a client looking at an older building, and the windows needed to be replaced. It was an incredible condo, but you know, there was another $70,000 to $100,000 to replace the windows.
Yeah.
So it's
very expensive projects. Yeah, that's why the maintenance fees go up when they have to do all these replacements.
Well, these ones the homeowner did themselves. So probably word of wisdom for everyone out there: if you're looking at older condos, be very careful. You know, do a home inspection, but even more than that, get a contractor in to take a look, because those they're not. We don't really look at. Sometimes we think, oh, let's just replace the windows, but the reality is. Windows are extremely expensive here in Hawaii, and you know, bringing those in from the mainland.
Right.
Very much so. What about, I know we had a situation where you didn't need to do an appraisal then because it was a certain type of loan, and that was the first time I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, we get appraisal waivers sometimes when you have a buyer who, especially when the buyer's stronger and it's a unit or a property that it could be either a single family home or a condo. Property value has to be $1 million or less, or under $1 million. And we run the file through an automated underwriting system. And if we get an appraisal waiver, then we don't have to do an appraisal. And that can make things go a lot faster. Sometimes we're able to close in as little as 2 weeks when we have an appraisal waiver, but you don't have to wait for it. That's what takes the longest now. These days is the waiting for the appraiser to visit, do the inspection, and produce their report.
Guys, I know our office is at the mercy of appraisers, and we just sold a luxury home up in Monolani Heights, and you know, the appraiser told us 11 o'clock. They didn't get there till nearly 1 o'clock. And you know, Julie at my office just was very patient, because she knows once you get those appraisers there, that's what's holding up the loans, right? Yeah. So we do everything to get them into the house. You know, it's interesting, no appraisal, which is really great in today's marketplace, because oftentimes every time a home or condo sells, it does set a new precedence of a new price, and of course the appraisals are lagging behind. So knowing that's so powerful, because it means people don't have to bring additional cash in if that appraisal comes in short.
Yeah, and sometimes we have a property that might be a little questionable, and if we can run the file through the automated underwriting system with that property address, if we get an appraisal waiver, then we don't have to worry about any questions about the appraiser or saying something might not be safe, or renovations might not be completed, or issues that might cause a problem with a normal appraisal report. If we get an appraisal waiver, we don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. So, you know, just some quick tips. If somebody's out there looking for condominiums, what are some of the quick tips that you would tell the realtor or the client that they should be aware of before, if they're, you know, they should look at before entertaining putting an offer in, for instance?
Well, you want to look at the health and safety issues. If it's an older building, you want to check to see if there's any popcorn ceilings that might have asbestos, and most people try to get that replaced or repaired. A lot of that still exists here, and you want to make sure that the amenities are well kept and that there isn't a lot of deferred maintenance. And usually you can tell more from the condo docs, so that's why that's part of the contract, that you get the condo docs so you can review everything and you can see the financial health of the place as well.
I'm very happy to hear that lenders are looking at that. I think we used to cringe and think, oh no, I don't want them to look at it, we just want to buy. But in this day and age, and because of our prices being so much higher, and so you know what you're buying, or you can be aware of it and go in, you know, with knowledge, it's so important, you know, to have those documents looked at.
Right. And another thing to keep in mind, if you're buying a primary residence, if you put at least 10% down, then it will go a limited condo review. It's not as in-depth of a review that the lender goes through. If you put less than 10% down, then you have to go through a full review of the condo docs, and that can take a while, and it can bring up issues that you wouldn't see in a limited review. So that sometimes just makes a difference. If someone's going to be planning to put 5% down, but they can stretch a little bit and put 10% down, that can make the difference, and make the difference between qualifying and not qualifying on a purchase or a refinance too.
Exactly. Is that, it's so what do it's interesting, I've noticed in the last few months condominium sales are just going so fast because single family homes have gone up so much that people are going to condominiums. I think we still have a bit of appreciation going with condominiums, and I am seeing some condominiums stay on the market longer just because they're older buildings, and with the interest rates going up, I think it's affected that market a little bit actually.
Yeah, inventory overall is so low then there's just not enough for all the housing demand.
I know. I did a search we had some clients from California, and I believe we looked East Wahoo, Kaka'ako, Ala Moana, between 1.1 to 1.9 million for what they were looking for a view. That was probably 8 properties. It was crazy.
Very low inventory. And we're getting a lot of buyers from the mainland and from other places because now people can work from anywhere. So you can work from anywhere a lot more during the pandemic. People are working remotely, and the companies are allowing them to. So why not work in Hawaii? And so there's all this extra demand that we didn't have before.
Exactly.
And so that provides the underlying support for the market. And there's just increases, or the issue with the scarcity of inventory.
Exactly. Well, look, I want to thank you for your great wisdom here. And Duncan, I just love it. We have the same values of making sure people buy safe properties, or at least are educated on what they're buying, which is huge.
Exactly.
Very huge. But on that note, we'll go to Marianne's photos like we do each week. And this is entitled Why We Love to Live in Hawaii. And let me just make this bigger for everyone to see. And basically why we live in Hawaii, the lifestyle, the beauty, the nature, the activities. And here we have the bougainvilleas, of course, and then surf's up, and the surf is certainly up this week. And I know I called Doug yesterday. I said, where are you? I'm going surfing. So we had a nice lunchtime surf session. So he's been taking advantage of all this huge surf lately. And then, of course, our beautiful sunsets and rainbows are, we had even though it's been raining a bit this week, we had beautiful rainbows out there also. And of course that gold dust day gecko considered good luck in Hawaii. And, need good luck as we enter into further, phases of, what's going on in the world, and welcoming back visitors again. But again, Duncan, thank you, for your wisdom.
Thank you.
And,
my pleasure.
Just enjoy it tremendously, and everyone have a great weekend. Much mahalo.